Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com. So for this Mr. Robot episode 11 review, we're going to start off with a little bit of feedback from episode 10. This first little maybe 5-minute segment or something like that is going to be just feedback, and I have not watched episode 11 yet, but if you fast forward to about 5 minutes in or something like that, I'll put a timestamp when the episode 11 review begins, so check the notes for that. But first off, we have comments from Crayon Divinity. He asked me to go check out one of his videos real quick, and normally I'm not trying to go promote a bunch of different channels, but Crayon had a very interesting breakdown of a Tyrell and Elliot crossover. He thinks that they are the same person. So at first I didn't believe him, and honestly, the more he started laying out the facts, I mean, he was like Charlie off of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, with the red yarn, pulling it out, showing, this is crimes located to this crime, to this and to this. And I was like, whoa. And so the more he started to lay out some of the facts, Crayon, he says, one of the first faces of when Elliot's face is turning in the mirror, I think it's season 1, it turns from Elliot to Tyrell. He says Tyrell is the first face that it turns to. There's always tons of weird framing around it. I'm not going to recite everything that he says in his video. Go check out his video if you want to see the full review. But he has he's laid out over a handful of suggestions that refer to as Mr. Robot and Elliot are actually fractions of Tyrell, and that Tyrell is actually the main character, which is an extremely interesting way to, frame this entire show. And it's one of those ways that, if that was the case, that it would recontextualize the entire show. But I wrote down, a handful of things that are points that Crayon was talking about. There's always these weird interactions with Tyrell and Elliot, and let's just say strangers. Like a couple episodes ago, when we lost Tyrell in that episode, they go inside to a gas station, and a lady there pretty much only refers to them as one person and doesn't talk to all three of them at one time. Kind of the same deal with Price, and the end of season 2, I believe. I do feel like there are a couple plot holes with Crayon's thinking, with the third element being Tyrell. I'm not sure if that's narratively satisfying, for one thing. He definitely lays out some great points that would suggest that they might be one person. There's just a couple of small, intricate details, like who are the people talking to when Elliot is clearly not in the vicinity and it's just Tyrell. Like, I believe Crayon does bring up the fact that Joanna can quote unquote see right through Elliot, which might refer to it being that he might be Tyrell, but it would be very odd for all of these interactions with people to refer back to them actually talking to Tyrell instead of Elliot. And there was just so many times that I was like, I don't know if this theory would actually play. So I honestly don't think that it's going to pan out that way, but I do think that he lays out a pretty interesting case for it. Katarina Ferreira says, shout out to Kurt Vonnegut references. Obviously, the Breakfast of Champions references when Leon says he has to steal a minor, meaning taking a leak. But not only that, the taxi company takes Darlene and Dom to the motel. The motel is called Dresden Taxi. Oh, the taxi is called that. I think that everyone knows that Vonnegut knows that he was actually at the Dresden bombing. And of course, that inspired him to write Slaughterhouse 5. I have no idea any Kurt Vonnegut references, so that completely went over my head. So I appreciate that, Katerina. Who we have? Bruce Kent. Seems like one caught the ending part since I don't see it in the comments. What? Oh, it seems like no one caught the ending since I don't see it in the comments. It was Dom and Darlene simultaneously confronting their fears and stepping into a new chapter of their lives that will allow them to grow as individuals. So it's kind of that you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need kind of saying. I did catch that off of the Bald Move podcast. It's one of my favorite Mr. Robot podcasts that I think they did an excellent breakdown of the series, but especially of this episode. Bruce Kent continues to say, Dom was too attached to mundane things and didn't do anything for herself ever, so much to the point where she stayed in the episode that she had never even made herself. She had stated in the episode that she had never made herself a grilled cheese sandwich in over 5 years. Now she's leaving on a trip and is finally detached from responsibilities. Darlene relies on people too much, so much to the point that she spirals into drugs when separated. Now that she is by herself, she is forced to learn to be independent. Besides that, this was a boring episode for a change, but every show has a misfire. Oh, so Bruce didn't like this episode. I actually heard a few whispers through the vine that this episode didn't always work for certain people. I can see how this episode would kind of feel like putting on the brakes to something, the train that was chugging along for, I don't know, several episodes. I think this is one of those cases where you have these excellent characters that we want to wrap up the endings to, but not every show or every movie gets to. So if this was playing and as a, let's just say this season was a movie, I don't think this scene would have happened, or it wouldn't have been this elongated. But since we have this as a show, we have 40 minutes to really dissect the ending of these two major female characters, female-centric characters, and putting the Dark Army stuff aside, I honestly liked how they executed it. I heard some mixed reviews on the music choices. A lot of times I do prefer having the score on the Mr. Robot, the synth hitting really deeply, because I think that having this soundtrack, I heard it was like Carly Rae Jepsen or something like that, turned it into a little bit more of a quote-unquote rom-com style and not so much of a Mr. Robot cinematic style. Now, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I don't know how you all are feeling. This pacing of this episode didn't necessarily bother me, but if we go back and find out that all of these Dark Army, operatives were there, just to take out Dom and Darlene, or, keep an eye on them, I think it's a completely different story. Like Sam Esmail's always been doing. He's recontextualizing the entire season by just adding these tiny little ideas and droplets, kind of like Divinity was discussing, in his theories and stuff like that. It's just small, subtle details within time shiftiness, whether kind of stuff like losing Mobley and Trenton at that one time. Like some of us didn't catch that it was, two different time periods happening during that episode, or there were several different hours in between, and that we had already, they had already been shot by that point. Sam Esmail likes to do that. The framing, of course, people, a lot of the framing of the episodes make it look like there's room for another person, or, another quote-unquote entity, something like that. All right, I've rambled enough. It's been probably 10 minutes, sorry. One more thing. Irene says there's only about 350 million people in the United States, and about 8 billion people in the entire world. So I needed to just get that out. All right, so let's start the review for Mr. Robot, Episode 11. Mr.Robot, Season 4, Episode 11. Here's a synopsis real quick. This is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com. Photo, video, digital media production. EliasRoushMedia.com. Here's a synopsis. White Rose's men kill the FBI agent sent for Zhang as she proclaims there is only White Rose now. Elliot arrives at the Washington Township nuclear plant, finding employees slaughtered, and is brought to White Rose. They argue about the nature of people, hatred in the world, and with White Rose claiming her machine will create a better one, while Elliot says those that love him, quote, even though he hates himself, unquote, make the world still worth saving. White Rose has already activated the machine, killing herself, as she says Elliot has a choice. Elliot plays an old computer game thinking he can stop the nuclear meltdown, but seems it's too late. He and Mr. Robot express their love for each other as everything turns red. In an alternate world, Elliot is the upbeat and happy CEO of Allsafe and an only child engaged to Angela, and has a loving relationship with his still living father. Zhang is a beloved charitable woman. He lands a major account with the F Corp after saying he'll always stand with Tyrell. Elliot returns home only to recognize that Elliot in a hoodie is sitting at his computer. So this was the episode exit. Episode 11 is the one that I guess answers the question whether Mr. Robot is seriously a sci-fi or, if this is a supernatural. I guess this is way more sci-fi that we're having. White Rose explains to us that she wants to bring a parallel universe to us, and that she has this when Elliot is down there in, I'm just going to say the cellar where he, the place they're doing the little White Rose showdown. It is, for one, it's got some interesting cinematography. For one thing, I really love the cinematography in this episode. I will say a couple of the sets did look a little bit to me. I don't know if anybody else got that. The Washington Township plant did look a little bit like a green screen to me. I'm not sure if some other sets didn't work from other people, but other than that, this was the episode that really answered the question of, the parallel universe. And that was kind of floating around, but I mean, we got a legitimate answer, but we're not exactly sure to what extent, because honestly, I was watching this thinking, people would try to guess this, and the fact that SamEsmail wants to open this Pandora's box at the very last second and kind of leave us hanging at the very end without answering too many questions is, a tad frustrating. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like, we got so much of this world to explore, but it's like, oh, it sucks. I can't just jump into the next episode so I can get some answers, because we get some amazing cameos back. Like, some of our predictions were that we were going to see Tyrell again. It's interesting that we fade into a red light, as in Tyrell fades into a blue light. Does that mean Tyrell faded into a different parallel universe or something back in episode 4, something like that? Or, what does the color scheme have to do? I know that that's kind of a matrixy thing if you think about it, red pill, blue pill kind of thing. But I don't have any answers, and nothing in the comment section either that would refer to, having to go to a parallel universe, and let alone what are we going to do in this parallel universe. I know, and the fever dream that Elliot had back in season 1 kind of discussed some of this. If I think was Angela says, we're going to get married or something like that, and it's that kind of thing. It's really going back on season 1 and rewriting a lot of the things that season 1 had going for it originally, such as, not instead of E Corp, we got the F Corp. Elliot's kind of the big shot at Allstate, and we get Ollie coming back, that asshole. He's still, and in the one thing he comes in and says some racist shit. What does he say? He can sell snow to an Eskimo or something. I was like, God dang it, Ollie, that's the one thing you got to come in and say. So I thought it was funny that he walks in real quick and says some dumb shit, I guess. What else do we have? This episode, it really felt like a thick episode. Did anybody else feel that? Because the first half is kind of slow and methodical, as we're following Elliot, telling his Mr. Robot and his folks that he wants to do this alone. And I didn't catch any of the soundtracks. I'll have to go back and maybe throw it in the show notes or let somebody comment, be like, oh, it's actually this soundtrack, and this means he wanted to commit larceny or something. I don't know. It's like, I'll have everyone in the comments be like, this is what the song meant here, this is what the song meant here. I don't really have time for that at this very moment, because a lot of this specific show tonight was soundtrack based, so we're gonna have to go back and really dissect some of the soundtracks if we want to maybe find some hidden meanings and whatnot. I found it interesting that in the parallel universe, I'm kind of jumping around in this review. It's kind of got it all jumbled in my head, I guess, at this point. But anyways, I found it interesting that we didn't have a Darlene in this episode. I felt like she's such an integral part of the majority of the season and Elliot's life. It's like, what was the decision to have her not involved in the parallel universe? I think that's kind of interesting from a narrative standpoint. Let me see anything anyone said on the comment section in the previous review real quick and see. A lot of people were talking about Irving and stuff from the previous episode. It's like that none of that was talked about, I guess, because we transferred to this new alternate universe, that none of that is going to be revealed. Like, I mean, the Dom stuff, the Darlene stuff, like, does any of that even matter? Does any of it matter that the Deus group is robbed in the original timeline? Like, I'm very curious what the original timeline is, because the longer this was going on, the longer I was thinking, oh my gosh, have we been watching, has the Mr. Robot season 1, 2, 3, and 4, majority of 4, all been taking place in a separate universe, and we're actually, the regular universe is the one we were just shown tonight? Like, that would be mind blowing. I'd be like, oh my god, it was even weird to see Rami Malek in this like, bright and happy and upbeat lighting scheme. It's just so jarring at this point. It's like, what is going on? And it seems that it's been either rewind or fast forward to May based on the phone. And also Tyrell in this parallel universe looks like, I don't want to say he looks like a bum, but I mean, we've seen what he's looked like the majority of Mr. Robot, and it was not, glasses, thick glasses with a beard. Like, not that anything's wrong with that, but I mean, he was, I got glasses and a beard, but like, Tyrell was clean cut, no glasses, always in a suit, and seeing him like this is just like, oh my gosh, it almost recontextualizes me as a person. I'm like, I gotta go get me a nice suit. Is that what it turns me into? Looking like, looking good. But yeah, so let me say anything else. I don't see Katarina Ferreira. I think I talked a little bit about that, the Kurt Vonnegut reference earlier. That was pretty catchy. I really like that opening shot with White Rose. I thought that the SWAT team had come in and like taken out White Rose and everything like that. I was like, oh shit, going back and seeing this scene again, especially in the way that it's going through the flashbacks at the very beginning and it leads into the actual episode playing, that was pretty smooth. And we kind of get some extra additional content. I believe there's some additional content between Darlene and Elliot. I don't think he actually said, thank you for caring about me or something like that. In the original episode, it does kind of play a little bit with that. And Let me see what else we have. Anything else here? Um, I thought it was an interesting F Society speech. There's been a F Society speech every single season, and we've been kind of waiting for it. For him to say something, and he finally says it to White Rose, which BD Wong, holy shit, he's fucking scary as hell as White Rose. I was like, oh my, I was like, this is next level BD Wong. But I kept, my mind kept shifting. I was like, whoa, who am I watching again? This is BD Wong. Oh my gosh, phenomenal portrayal as White Rose. I was blown away. Let me see anything else I have in my notes. I started taking notes kind of late into it. Based on, let me see. Hoodie Elliot is waiting back in his home, waiting back in Red Elliot's home. I'm just going to call the parallel universe the Red universe, and then that's going to be Red Elliot. So Red Elliot meets our Elliot, and our Elliot is just standing there on the computer. I was like, I guess the computer is the portal to getting to and from these places is what it looks like. I'm just curious, is the regular timeline, is our Elliot dead? Because based off of what, that little hallway of fire, what was going on over there, it looked like it was probably having a nuclear meltdown. So I have a lot of questions about what's going on in the main timeline. Sam Esmail likes to, cut before we get to see some really important stuff. So we may not have the full story on the regular timeline. This is an interesting timeline. It's not like everything's like all dandy and everything. It's kind of like, the world is kind of the same, but with like a remix. It's like Mr. Robot with a remix, and we have like we see things like Angela's apartment. I didn't understand what the blood in the trash can was all about. Does anybody get what that was? Is Price still like suffering from something? Does he have like some condition? I didn't understand what the trash can thing was. Y'all let me know in the comments. Anything else? Washington Township plant at the beginning, that was a pretty intense scene. Him going in and doing the little hack, and then all of a sudden the Dark Army just suddenly appearing, and that guy always munching on a damn burger. Why is that guy always munching on a burger? Can anyone tell me, is that guy just always getting hooked up with the fresh burgers from Red Wheelbarrow or something like that? And I mean, I wondered if they were kind of implying that this guy had been munching on some burgers for a while. I just want to know why. I don't know. And I'm surprised that no one in the comments or podcast I had heard that had thought that White Rose was going to kill herself. I didn't even think about, she pulls the gun out at one point and is pointing it at Elliot when they're in the, the little basement cellar or whatever. And I was not expecting her to, pull it on herself, but I mean, I should have. I mean, her entire gang and everything is based off of that. So, a lot of questions, but also a lot of answers about, this next parallel universe. What does this time universe do? Is this going to be satisfying? I'm curious what everyone's thinking about it. I see that it has a 10 on IMDb, but I'm not sure if that's just because it's really fresh after the show is done, or what. So I believe next week on December 22nd is when the next two are coming out. I don't know if it's 2 in one night or if it's I don't know. Stay tuned to see what's going on with series finale part 1 and series finale part 2. I think they're airing in the same night, if not back-to-back nights. So, check your local listing, whatever's going on with that. But yeah, I'm blown away with this episode for one. As a total episode that explains and feels narratively satisfying, I do feel like it definitely has some pacing problem. I wouldn't even call it a problem. It just feels like it's very much one half of a whole. It definitely feels like the beginning of a movie or something like that, and we're waiting to see the last 2/3. It's hard to just rate this on its own because it's, introducing us to the outro of our regular robot and intro to our new robot. There's so much introduction and world building that Esmail has to do, kind of exiting the old world and entering the new, that it definitely does that. And does anyone, I know that there was kind of an exit sign motif going on with the past few seasons. People said something about like every time there was an exit sign on screen, either there was a death going to happen or something was going to happen. I don't know. I wonder if this, exit means that, has anything to do with that. And it's exit with a capital X. I don't really know what that even means. If anyone can think about that. So yeah, it's one of those episodes that answers a lot of questions, but also it opens Pandora's box of more. And at this point we can do a ton of predictions, and I'm not sure if we're all gonna get a correct prediction, because I don't think anyone predicted anything at this point. Let me see, anything else that I need to cover from the standpoint of the comments. Yeah, no, I think we are just about done. Excuse me. We have someone had to pronounce me. Chingy Flingy said her name was Dominique, not Dominic. My bad, I'm sorry about that. Let me see. I think I covered that comment already. And Matt Gilbert, thank you for the subscription. And everyone else that is subscribing, thank you as well. Stay subscribed and let me know what else y'all would like to cover. We have a ton of movies coming down the tube. Check out the LuckyDog podcast on iTunes or Soundcloud or whatever your Overcast podcast app is of choice. Let me see. I appreciate everyone that's following. And let me see. Abram Surfrino says Leon is a member of a real life parody cult called the Church of Subgenius, and that's why he uses a Laxware Linux, watches classic 90s television, and calls people normies. And on that note, we are going to take it out. Take it easy. And take it easy, friend. Thank you for listening, watching, whatever you're doing, friend. Rate, share, subscribe, LuckyDog Podcast, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. What are the other? I don't know. There's a ton of these social medias. Find one, subscribe, help us out, rate us 5 stars. PayPal.me/LuckyDog Podcast for donations. Thank you for helping us out, and rate us a thumbs up because that helps if you can help with anything. Thank you. And we can't do this without you. And I just want y'all to know, Mr. Robot fans, y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. Cream of the crop. Thank you. Take it easy.